Deep inside the thick green forest of an unknown planet, the air was heavy with the scent of strange flowers and wet earth. The trees stretched high above, their leaves creating a soft, almost twilight-like glow even in the daytime. Hidden beneath a large, curling leaf, a tiny alien girl named Lyra watched silently. She was very small, no bigger than a bird, with bright, curious eyes and delicate wings that shimmered faintly in the dappled light. Her people had always been careful to avoid the tall creatures that sometimes wandered into their forests. Called these beings giants, and stories passed down through many generations warned that these giants could be dangerous and unpredictable. Lyra's heart beat fast as she saw one such giant moving slowly through the trees. The giant was a human, a species rarely seen by Lyra's kind. He was tall and strong, carrying equipment that looked heavy and unfamiliar, and his face was set in a focused, serious expression. Despite his size and the strange machines attached to him, there was something different about him today. He didn't rush or shout or destroy the plants around him. Instead, he moved with care, watching the ground and the plants as if he were searching for something important, but did not want to cause harm. Lyra stayed very still, holding her breath whenever he looked in her direction. Her mind was full of questions. Was he here to study the forest? Was he lost? Or worse, was he here to harm her people? Every warning she had ever heard told her to stay away and hide, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. The human pulled out a small device from a bag that hung over his shoulder. It made a soft clicking noise as he placed it on the ground. Lyra's eyes widened. It was not a weapon, but a strange tool she had never seen before. Then, carefully, he reached into his bag again and pulled out something wrapped in bright paper. He unwrapped it slowly and placed a piece of colorful fruit on a rock nearby. The smell was sweet and unfamiliar. Lyra was both frightened and tempted. The stories of her ancestors told her not to trust the giants, but hunger and curiosity pulled her closer. The giant human stepped back, watching without moving, as if waiting for something. Lyra's small legs moved on their own as she crept closer, her wings fluttering softly to keep her balance on a thin branch. She reached the rock and sniffed the fruit. It smelled good, not like the poisonous berries that grew near her home. Slowly, she took a tiny bite. The taste was sweet and fresh, unlike anything she had ever eaten before. She blinked in surprise and looked up at the giant. He smiled gently, showing no anger or threat, only patience. For the first time, Lyra began to see the giant not as a threat, but as something else, maybe even a friend. But the forest around them was quiet in an unusual way. No birds sang, and the wind held its breath. Something felt different, like the moment before a storm. Lyra's eyes scanned the shadows, alert for any sign of danger. She wondered if the giant knew more about this place than he let on. Was he truly alone, or were there others like him, waiting nearby? The feeling of being watched sent a shiver down her spine. Yet, the human continued to sit calmly, eating a piece of his own food, and occasionally glancing at the small alien girl with interest and kindness. Lyra realized that despite the difference in their size and species, there was a connection forming in this strange and silent forest. For now, the fear that had ruled her thoughts was slowly turning into cautious hope. The encounter between the tiny alien girl and the towering human had begun.
Ow!
And the forest held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Lyra's small heart pounded as she inched closer to the towering human who called himself Marcus. She watched his large hands carefully reach into his pack, moving past strange tools that looked sharp and heavy. But then she saw him pull out something softer, something wrapped in a thin cloth that did not look like a weapon at all. Her eyes focused on the package, her curiosity growing despite the cautious warnings ringing in her mind from years of stories about humans. The forest around them seemed unusually still, as if even the smallest creatures were watching, waiting for what would happen next. Marcus moved with a calm that surprised Lyra. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make sudden movements that would scare her away. Instead, he gently placed a piece of fruit on a nearby rock. The fruit was bright and colorful, shining softly in the filtered sunlight. Then Marcus took a few steps back, his posture relaxed and peaceful, showing no threat. Lyra blinked, her tiny wings fluttering nervously, unsure whether this was a trick or a genuine offer.
At.
She stayed hidden for a moment, her mind racing between fear and hunger. She knew her people often hid from humans because they could be dangerous. But this man seemed different. The smell coming from the fruit was sweet and fresh, nothing like the bitter or sour tastes she usually avoided. Her tiny feet moved almost without her permission, carrying her closer to the rock where the fruit lay. With trembling hands, she reached out and touched the fruit's smooth skin. It was cool to the touch, and the scent was even sweeter up close. She took a small bite, cautious at first, and then another. The flavor was unlike anything she had tasted before, sweet and juicy, filling her mouth with a pleasant warmth that made her forget her fear for a moment. She looked up at Marcus, who smiled gently, his eyes kind and inviting. That smile told her this giant wanted no harm. He wanted to share something with her, something good. Slowly, Lyra stepped out from her hiding place, moving closer until she stood on the rock beside the fruit. Marcus watched silently, letting her make the choice on her own. The forest seemed to breathe with her as she ate more of the fruit, feeling her confidence grow. She noticed how Marcus did not reach for any weapon, how he made no sudden moves, and how his eyes were soft with curiosity and respect. For a tiny alien girl who had been taught to fear humans, this simple act of offering food was breaking down walls built by generations of fear. As she finished the fruit, a small smile appeared on Lyra's face, the first sign of trust beginning to bloom. But even as this quiet moment unfolded, a shadow flickered at the edge of the trees, a reminder that this peaceful encounter might not last forever. The forest held its breath, and both the tiny girl and the towering human knew their first contact was only the beginning of something much bigger, a fragile start to a story that could change everything. Suspense lingered in the air, but for now, food had become the bridge between two very different worlds. Over the next few days, the forest became the quiet stage for a remarkable friendship slowly unfolding between Lyra and Marcus, two beings from worlds so different yet finding common ground in the simplest acts of kindness. At first, Lyra remained cautious, keeping her distance, her small frame darting between the shadows of leaves and branches as she observed the human's every move. But she noticed that Marcus never raised his voice or made sudden gestures that might frighten her. Instead, he showed patience, sitting calmly and waiting without expectation. She watched how he carefully handled the plants around him, sometimes touching leaves gently as if to understand them better, never tearing or breaking them carelessly. This respect for the forest, something her people held sacred, was an unspoken, the language of peace that started to ease her fear. In return, Marcus watched Lyra's graceful movements, the way her eyes sparkled with curiosity and how she seemed to understand the forest deeply. More than any machine or sensor he carried, he realized that size and strength were nothing compared to knowledge and connection. One day, Marcus pulled out a small notebook and a pencil from his pack. With careful strokes, he began to draw pictures of Earth's, the blue oceans, tall mountains, and cities filled with lights. At first, Lyra only tilted her head, unsure what to make of the strange shapes on paper. But as the sketches grew more detailed, showing simple things like trees, animals, and people, her eyes widened with wonder. She saw something familiar in the shapes of the trees, even if they were different from the ones on her planet. She began to understand that Marcus was sharing a story, a glimpse of his world, and in return, she decided to show him hers. Gently, Lyra led Marcus deeper into the forest, pointing out the glowing flowers that lit the night. With soft colors and the tiny creatures that scurried quickly beneath the leaves, she showed him the plants that could heal wounds and the ones that changed color with the weather. Marcus listened and watched closely, amazed at the beauty and complexity of a world so different from his own. They communicated without many words, but through shared experiences and gestures, a silent bond was forming. Yet beneath this growing friendship, a quiet tension remained. Both knew that others might not be as welcoming or patient as they were. Marcus worried about the humans from his team, who might see the forest only as a place to explore and conquer. Lyra feared the stories of giants who came not to learn but to destroy. Still, they chose to believe in this fragile connection and protect it. Each day brought new moments of trust, Marcus leaving small gifts of food and tools, Lyra bringing him rare plants and guiding him to safe paths through the thick undergrowth. They laughed softly at misunderstandings and learned to read each other's expressions, discovering kindness that crossed the boundaries of size, language, and culture. Their time together was not just about sharing knowledge, but about healing old fears and building hope. The forest, once a place of caution and hiding, became a bridge between two worlds. And as the sun set behind the towering trees, casting long shadows on the soft ground, Lyra and Marcus sat side by side, knowing that what they had started was more than friendship. It was the beginning of something that could change the future for both their peoples. The silence between them was full of unspoken promises, and the forest seemed to watch in quiet approval, holding its breath for what was yet to come. The calm and fragile peace that had settled over the forest was suddenly shattered one evening, when a low, terrifying growl echoed through the trees, freezing both Lyra and Marcus in place. From the shadows emerged a predator unlike anything either of them had ever seen before, massive. Armored creature with sharp claws and glowing eyes that cut through the twilight like burning embers. The beast moved quickly, its heavy steps shaking the ground, and the air filled with a tension so thick that even the smallest insects fell silent. Lyra's heart raced as she realized the danger was not only to her, but to Marcus's expedition as well. This creature was a threat to everyone in the forest. From her tiny village hidden among the leaves to the large machines Marcus had brought with him, panic spread through the forest like wildfire. And the tiny alien girl knew that this was a moment where fear could destroy everything she and Marcus had worked so hard to build. But instead of running away, Lyra flew toward Marcus's urgency shining in her eyes. She whispered in her own language, hoping the human could understand her warning. Marcus nodded quickly, his face serious but calm. Together, they began to plan a way to stop the predator before it could cause any more harm. Lyra's knowledge of the terrain was their greatest advantage. She knew every hiding spot, every path the beast might take, and where the forest was strongest and weakest. Marcus, on the other hand, had the tools and technology to help them defend their home. Using his scanner, he tracked the creatures' movements, while Lyra guided him through the dense forest, avoiding traps and dangerous plants. Their teamwork was a dance of trust and skill, each one depending on the other's strengths to survive. The predator was clever, using the darkness to sneak up and surprise them. But Lyra's quick thinking and Marcus's technology kept them one step ahead. When the beast charged, Marcus used a light device to blind it temporarily, while Lyra led it into a natural pit trap she had discovered long ago. The creature fell with a thunderous crash, but the danger was not yet over. It struggled fiercely, threatening to break free. Lyra and Marcus worked quickly, combining her knowledge of the local plants and his medical supplies to calm and sedate the beast without causing it lasting harm. The forest was tense as the battle ended, but slowly, relief began to spread. The predator, though dangerous, was part of the natural balance here, and now it was contained safely. News of their victory spread through Lyra's village, where the tiny aliens watched with amazement and growing respect. For the first time, they saw a human not as a giant threat, but as a protector willing to fight alongside them. Marcus's team, alerted by the danger, arrived cautiously, surprised to find the tiny alien girl standing bravely beside the human they called Marcus. The bond between them had become a symbol of hope, showing that two very different beings could work together to face even the darkest threats. As the forest slowly returned to its peaceful state, Lyra and Marcus stood side by side, knowing that this experience had changed everything. Fear had been replaced by trust, and enemies had become allies. The predator was a reminder that danger still lurked, but also that unity and courage could overcome even the greatest challenges. In the quiet that followed, the tiny alien girl's community began to accept humans in a new way, opening their hearts to the possibility of friendship and cooperation. And Marcus understood that the true journey was only beginning a journey where two worlds could learn from each other and grow stronger together in the face of whatever dangers the future might hold. After the danger of the predator had passed and the forest once again settled into a peaceful calm, Marcus began to prepare for his departure. The days they had spent together, filled with quiet moments of learning and shared challenges, it changed something deep inside both him and Lyra. He packed his equipment carefully, knowing that he had seen only a small part of this strange, beautiful world, and that there was still much to discover. Lyra watched him from the branches of a tall tree, her small heart heavy with the thought of him leaving. Though she was still cautious by nature, the trust they had built could not be undone so easily. Before Marcus left, she fluttered down to stand beside him and held out a small glowing flower from her world. Its petals shimmered with a soft light, almost like a tiny star captured in bloom. The flower was rare and precious, a symbol of friendship and hope among her people. When Marcus took it gently, he looked into her bright eyes and promised that this was not the end. He said he would return not alone, but with others who would come to learn, to protect, and to share in the wonders of the planet. The words carried weight, a promise that bridged the vast differences between their two worlds. Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known before. She knew that the future was uncertain and that many challenges still lay ahead. But now, they would face those challenges together. As Marcus took his first steps back toward the human ship waiting at the edge of the forest, the tiny alien girl felt the eyes of her village upon her. The others watched not with fear but with hope and curiosity, seeing in her courage the possibility of a new path, one where humans and aliens could be allies, not enemies. The forest itself seemed to breathe a quiet blessing over their parting, the leaves rustling softly as if to say goodbye and good luck. The bond between Lyra and Marcus was more than friendship. It was a symbol of understanding and kindness that had overcome the walls built by fear and difference. Their story was a reminder that even the smallest act, a shared piece of food, a glowing flower, a promise, could change the course of history. And as the ship lifted off into the sky, leaving trails of light behind it, Lyra looked up with hope shining in her eyes, ready to share what she had learned and to welcome the day when humans and her people would walk side by side in this new world. The forest waited patiently, holding the secret of their meeting and the promise of a future where two very different species could become friends, allies, and protectors of a world full of wonder and life.